Let's get salty!
Everyone, Zeddy here again today with a brand new video, and we have had some time to digest some numbers, take a look at a lot of the cards, how they're performing, and I literally get asked every single day since Whizbang's workshop has come out, what should I craft? What are the safe crafts? We're gonna go through class by class and the neutrals, taking a look at every epic and legendary, not so much the rares or commons because those are, relatively cheap to craft. My opinion on what cards are the safest to craft, which ones you should avoid, and basically based on like what's going on right now, which is a lot of Paladin and Hunter right now, but a lot of classes have playable decks, even if Paladin and Hunter are quite dominant. So we're gonna go through that. Again, as always, craft at your own risk. Really, pay attention to what you want to play, what you think is what you want to do, and go with that. And I'll try and mention if I think a card might get nerfed, you might get your dust back at some point. And if you enjoy the content on the channel, if you like I've earned your subscription, please hit that sub button down below. Give the video a like, it helps out a lot. And again, you guys have been awesome lately. Thank you all so much for your support. So starting off with Deathlight. Deathlight's doing pretty well. Plague Deathlight is probably the best, but Rainbow is also really good. And Rainbow Seamstress is an auto craft for any Rainbow Deathlight deck. You want to play that strategy, you want this card. And I saw a comparison on Reddit to like the Tiger plushie for Paladin. Like the card is better, it doesn't have a requirement, but this card's still that good. Getting that lifesteal, that reborn, that rush, 2 corpses in one can work really well with the undead hand buff too. Really good card. The numbers are absolutely great on it. Dr. Stitchinso is showing to be a playable, formidable card, particular in Rainbow Death Knight. Probably the least popular of the archetypes, but the numbers are really good. When this card's played, when it's drawn, mulligan win rate, all that stuff, it's showing quite a bit of promise. If you feel like you want to play that style of deck, get those corpses. Just so many bodies on this, and there's not a ton of silence and transform going on right now in the meta that it's likely to stick around, and I do think you can craft this one pretty safely. Silk Stitching, you'll note I don't have the golden because yeah, the card's bad. You do not want to craft this. It's just clunky, situational, doesn't really go into any current decks at the moment, so definitely a hard pass from me. And the Headless Horseman, I'm sad. This card so far, it's in decks that have a positive win rate, but if you look at it when you play it and drawn win rate, it's just not performing amazingly well yet. I think it's a good card. It's just the meta right now is so fast, so aggressive that you just don't really have time to play a 6-mana card that only kills 1 minion, and then that value you get from it later with the upgraded hero power, you're probably just not going to get it to it, right? Like, it's not going to happen. The games aren't going that long right now that the numbers are not amazing on it, but I love the card. I think it's really cool. For me, it's an auto craft, but if you're looking at the numbers like competitive wise, you might actually want to skip on it for now, but I do think it'll be a meta player at some point, and I think it is still kind of playable as it is. Demon Hunter is another class that's actually doing well, and red card, if you want to play the tempo Demon Hunter, is actually showing some decent numbers. It's not amazing. I don't know if you want to go out of your way to crafting this card, but it might actually be okay. I, again, probably would hold off on crafting this one, despite the fact that it's doing well in the deck it's in. But if you look again at the numbers on it, it's like, is it really doing well in the deck, or people play, is the deck good and it's just in it? I don't know. It's one you might want to consider, but one I'm a little bit more wary of recommending. CCG, the legendary that gives you 3 random first edition Demon Hunter cards, not doing very well, not really fitting into any decks. Reno Demon Hunter feels like maybe you go there, but it's just really slow. It's gonna die, and then the cards just don't particularly line up. The flavor's great. It's kind of cool to play with unnerfed Demon Hunter cards, which are still good, by the way. Doing the achievement for this thing, they were still good, but would not recommend crafting it. Mechtherodon is great when you discover it, but not so much when you put it in your deck. It's not performing well. Again, I wouldn't recommend crafting either Demon Hunter legendaries at the moment, but Window Shopper, this is the card you want if you're playing Demon Hunter right now. This is an incredible card. It is the reason Demon Hunter is showing positive win rates, because the discover options on demons are so limited right now. The smallest card pool in standard, you're gonna get 4 sets and all of that. there's barely any neutral demons, so you're gonna get like a Megtherodon a lot of the time. You're gonna get an Illidari, you're gonna get some really good stuff, and this card is fantastic and is absolutely worth crafting if you're kind of into that demon hunter game. Druid has the worst win rate. If you look at it across all ranks, it's brutal. I actually noted on DocuSite the best performing Druid deck right now is the Whizbang Druid deck. The Whizbang one, because it's got Nourish in it, it's got Ramp, and yeah, I cannot recommend J Display. Card is not good, and Smolin is not performing whatsoever at the moment. Alonius, I can't recommend it. Sky Mother Aviana, I think, is the closest card that is approaching playability at the moment. Even the numbers on this card are not good enough. Even a Highlander Druid, which is kind of a playable deck, it's not good enough. And I just, right now, Druid's in such a rough spot that I just can't recommend crafting any Druid Epic or Legendary. The only card that's showing any grade is like Elodius, because its played win rate is good. Because yeah, when you finally, kill somebody, get to play it, it wins all right. But the Mulligan drawn win rate really bad. And yeah, I'm gonna have to pass on like every Druid card right now. I just cannot recommend it. Hey Hunter, Hunter's really good right now. What Hunter cards should you craft? Well, definitely RC Rampage. I think you're probably gonna get your dust back on this card. It's definitely a nerf candidate where you get 4/6/1/1 hounds, and then if your board is a little bit more full, they get buffed, and then good luck killing them, and it works really well at the location. It's just a crack card. I figured it was going to be. It is absolutely 100% an auto craft if you want to play Hunter right now. Hemet, although it did exhibit some good win rate numbers early on, I'll show the signature, it's kind of funny. I feel like it's been more carried by the good Hunter decks. Like, you could put it in there, but like its played win rate is atrocious. Its Mulligan win rate's bad. Its drawn win rate is bad. The only good thing about the card is the decks it's in. So I don't actually think you want to go out of your way to craft Hemet. I think you just want to go for the more aggressive strategy. I really wouldn't recommend it. The egg is bad. No surprise. It's actually not as bad as I thought. But Hunter's just that good, I think. Like, I'm looking at the stats, it's pretty limited play size, but it's around 50% across most of the numbers there. But overall, I don't think you want to craft the egg whatsoever. And King Plush, again, really cool card. I love it, but probably wouldn't craft it right now. None of the top performing decks are really running it. I think he'll see his time at some point when those hand buff strategies get going. But overall, yeah, King Plush is a card I'm actually going to pass on. So Hunter's insanely good right now, but the only expensive card really you need to craft for the deck is RC Rampage. So pretty budget-friendly OP deck at the moment. Mage is in another spot where the class is not doing great. The only deck that is exhibiting positive win rates are Rainbow Mage, and they don't run any new cards. Yogg in the Box, Spell Mage in particular, is dreadful. Every deck list I have seen is sub 40%. You just can't stay alive. There's no way to defend yourself. You don't have good early AoE. You don't have armor gain really outside of discovering barrier. You don't have, the skeletons or solid alibi. You just have nothing. You just die. The meta is so aggressive. So Yogg in the Box, I can't recommend right now. I can't really recommend Galactic Projection Orb. The only one out there is Puzzle Master Kagdar. If you take a look at its numbers, it's okay. 50% deck win rate, and when played, the numbers actually go up despite the fact he could be an idiot and do some pretty stupid things. I thought this was going to be a bona fide 5-star auto-include mage card, but right now, I don't think I would go out of my way to craft it, but it's probably the most craftable of the mage cards at the moment. And yeah, that's basically about it, right? Like, you got Watercolor Artist, which also just doesn't fit into anything at the moment. Not really seeing play, and where it is, it's not doing well. So if you really want to craft one card, you might want to do Kagdar, but I don't know what you're playing in other than like throwing into Rainbow, and it's just not a top performing deck. And then Paladin. We know Paladin's nuts. It's like completely broken. We're probably going to talk about the Paladin problem tomorrow. I think we're ready to say it's bona fide S tier, just like something's gotta give. But is it really about the new epics and legendaries? Well, Cardboard Golem, probably not worth playing in your deck. There's like barely any data on the card because it's like so little played. It's just not really worth it. Or you don't really care about extending your auras. That's all the card does. You just want to kill your opponents. And Flash Sale, which I was convinced would be a really good card, the numbers are pretty good for it. Some like Flood aggro paladins are playing it. It's pretty solid, but I don't think you need to go out of your way to crafting it yet. It's a lot more niche, but I'm looking at the stats. It's like 60% deck win rate, 56% played win rate, mulligan win rates up there. Like the deck it is in is good. It's just not as popular as like the uber broken Paladin deck. So you can craft it. It's just like, I think there's better options in Paladin right now. Toy Captain Tarim auto craft. Like this card's just busted. It is so unbelievably good. You can get a giant hand buff on your stuff. You can neutralize a threat. I knew this card would be great. It's great. Don't even think about it. It goes into any Paladin deck and it might get nerfed and then you get your dust back. There's literally no downside for me, in my opinion, to crafting that card. And then you got Pipsy Paint Hoof, which is just, yeah, not good. It's not good. It goes into those big decks that are just can't survive. It gets like silenced. It's just not a good card to try and cheat out. Divine Shield, Rush, Taunt. It's as bad as I pretty much expected it to be. So even with Paladin being OP, you really only need to craft Tarim. That's like the only card that's like auto craft, and then you could consider Flash Sales. So again, you're looking pretty good as a budget player with some OP decks. Priest is struggling. It's not doing amazing, but the one card that I could say for sure I do think is a safe craft is Time Winder Zarimi. The Priest decks that are really close to being good abuse the extra turn. It's really a really good card. In Wild, as we showed yesterday, in aggro, it's absolutely disgusting. And although it's played win rate right now in standard, when you play this card, 70% win rate. The deck win rate's around like 48%. And I just feel like Priest will get good at some point. They got good stuff. They just need the others, like top decks, to chill just for a minute and it'll happen. But it's the one card that I will say, epic legendary, you can, but like Chalk Artist, not worth it. Raza, there hasn't been a deck yet to really utilize this. I do expect Raza to be a meta player at some point, but right now it's really not there. And the last epic, I think if you want to play Priest, you do need repackage. You do need it, but right now it just doesn't fit into like any control deck because control is just dead, mostly in standard as it is, and definitely a Priest. So I'd probably hold off on this one for now. Probably not worth it until a later date. Rogue is another class struggling, and literally if you look at the screenshot of the stats from Whizbang's workshop from Legend, every card has a negative win rate at every level. Every level it's not performing. Sonya is a busted card. It got fixed. It's not as busted as it was, but it's not enough to elevate yet for Rogue to be really good. The only decks I have seen played from Rogue are more weapon based, which do run Sonya. I think Sonya, if you want to craft it and have fun with Rogue, you're not going to regret it. It's going to be very good at some point. It's just they need more stuff to get going. They need the top classes to be worse, and then maybe something will happen. Water Cannon, again, not performing well enough. I can't recommend crafting it, and Swordfish is just better if you want to play Wild. And the other epics you got, or the other epic of Everything Must Go, there's like a Miracle Rogue thing with like Gaslight. It kind of works, but again, this is probably the best performing card outside of Sonya in Rogue, but it's still not good enough right now. And same with Shoplifter Goldbeard. He's actually just terrible. Some of the worst numbers we have for any card this set, like no number for him, if you look there, is above like 34%. He's horrendously bad, so you probably want to pass on that. And yeah, I would just say if you want to play Rogue, you really do need Sonya, but other than that, you probably want to pass at the moment. Shaman is doing okay. Highlander Shaman is doing all right, and Nature Shaman has been kind of a presence, but again, Shaman is having the problem of struggling with all these aggressive decks, even with a card like Baking Soda Volcano. When we're looking at epics and legendaries, Hagatha, too slow. The upside of turning your spells into minions just isn't really there. I can't recommend crafting it. Same with Once Upon a Time. These cards rarely are good enough, and this one doesn't seem to be quite making the cut. Shutterblog, if you want to play Shaman, is the best card to craft. It's really solid. It can go into your Highlander decks. There's combo decks. It works with like Kalamos I think it's called Calamos, the Shaman Legendary, where you can do like the fire invocation and do a lot of damage. That actually works. It is one of the only cards exhibiting like really good win rates right now for the class, but Shining Sentinel is also a hard pass. Like, it's not really doing much of anything in any Shaman deck right now. So again, Shaman is playable, but it's mostly Highlander in nature, and Shutter Block is the only card you really want to craft. Warlock, we know the Wheel of Death doing pretty well, but yeah, Curse Campaign, it's not good. You don't want to play this card, especially in a super aggressive meta. It is just painfully slow. You just can't do it. I don't know, like, it's an aggro meta. You want to play Malefic Rook? I mean, you need to have the weapon or whatever to like protect yourself, but it actually has a deck win rate of 53%, but I see the times played is like 890. I can't recommend it. It's not really any top meta decks. Nemzi, a good card, but the demons suck. The demon pool is not good. The only signature I'm missing, by the way, it's not there yet. I can't recommend Nemzi, but Wheel of Death, Warlock seems real. It's fun. It's pretty crazy, and you need this card to play Wheel of Death Warlock. Who would guess? I would recommend crafting it. Like, the deck's really good. The only issue, and I will give it like a warning on this, I feel like if Wheel of Death gets nerfed, this card doesn't get nerfed, because the things that enable it to be broken are like Forge of Wills, Reno being active, which maybe they'll nerf Reno or buff Reno in some ways to be start of game. That would make Wheel of Death a lot worse. I don't think this card ever gets nerfed. I'd be shocked. I feel like the support around it. So beware of that. If it does become a nerf candidate, which it can, this deck, because it's like, do you want this to be really good? And the aggro gets worse, it gets maybe better. You're probably not going to get dust back for the card, but it's so rad. And I gotta recommend it. And Table Flip, it's a common, but it's so broken. Warrior, like, Odin Warrior is insane. Warrior's great. It's just, you're not really playing any of the new cards. I think this is like the only new card that's seen like any semblance of play right now. The epics like Wreck'em and Deck'em, which is so narrow. You gotta play mechs that have a death rattle basically to get some value out of it. Chemical Spill, like, I can't recommend either of the epics. None of them are performing, neither are seeing a lot of play. Inventor Boom is probably the best option. It's seen some play in some Highlander decks, like with Bran and all of that, but I cannot possibly go out of my way to recommend crafting it. And Botface just seems like a bad card. Like, he just seems bad. He's so expensive, and even getting him out with this isn't good enough. And like, your hand size, you can't fit that many minis. It's just not good enough. So for Warrior, I don't think I recommend a single card. Not that Warrior's bad. Odin Warrior's great. Reno Warrior is really good. It's just, you don't really want almost any of these new cards. It just doesn't really make the cut. And then for neutrals, Ziliax, 100% autocraft, absolutely amazing card, whether you're going for the more later game strategy of like getting a copy and getting a bunch of lifesteal, or the mana cheat options in particular, the ones that like make you, it costs less and you cheat out a copy of it or a board buff. This card probably gets nerfed at some point, especially the mana cheat module, where you could very well get your dust back, but it's such a sweet card. It is so good, and it's good and wild. When a card's good and wild, it doesn't require like a strict build around, like it's not super synergistic with anything. It's a no-brainer. Craft the card if you don't have it already. I love it golden. It's so good. Corridor Sleeper, definitely not a craft at the moment. I feel like they made this intentionally bad, and they might buff it now that everyone can access it, because they're like, we don't want to give people a competitive advantage. They probably made it as like a 5/5 when it started out, and they nerfed it when it became a pre-release card, and then they'll buff it later. Like, that's my prediction. Do not craft it. And I mean, if you have it already through the pre-order, then you already have it, so you don't have to worry about it. Whizbang's an absolute beauty. He's such a cool card. He's not competitive. It's almost impossible to get to legend with him. Rard's trying his darndest, but it's very fun if you like just playing all these different random decks. I recommend crafting him, even though I don't really do it at all. I'm gonna give him some love. We gotta get Whizbang golden. It's the least I can do for such There we go. For such a rad dude, I'm gonna craft him golden, but again, only craft him if you want to have that fun. You get a bunch of different cards to play with, wild cards, quest lines, hero cards. Just don't expect to win a lot. There are decks that can win for sure, especially Warlocks. Warlocks is pretty good. The one with 20 cards, that can really win some games. So have some fun with it, but only craft it if you're in it more for the, you know, the memes, not for a competitive card. Nostalgia Clown has only really popped up in Reno Warriors so far, and it's okay there. That's the only place I would really consider it. Other than that, it's a pretty easy epic to pass on. We all got Lita for free, so that's fine. You don't have to craft it. She sucks anyways. I've seen Origami Dragon pop up in some burrito lists, but overall, probably not a card worth your time crafting. Califero is a free card, so you don't have to worry about that. Geppetto, I think, will emerge later when the meta slows down a bit, if we get that, you know, balance patch to tile down Hunter and Paladin, especially in like this hero power druid that could be good if aggro would just calm down for a minute. So I can't recommend it yet, but it is one to look out for. Factory Assembly Bot, seeing like no play. It's too slow. No way you can do this one right now. And the last epic, Playhouse Giant, which if you get the rewards track, you can get the golden, but you can craft this card. It is quite good in those Gaslight decks and the Zarimi decks. If you want to play those, absolutely worth crafting. And I do think it'll pop up later. It is probably one of the better epics you could consider for neutral. So that's all the epics and legendaries. It's a lot to digest, but I gotta give my guide my input. Again, I use all HS replay numbers since it's launched. I'm not going off assumptions, just what I see is performing as well. Hopefully this helped, and if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. Have a great day. Stay salty, my friends.